Roscoe. Thanks for coming. I'll give you a brief history about myself. I didn't talk in there. I'm Roscoe Hall. I've been a working chef for 36 years now. That's a really long time. I've been lucky enough to walk away 3 years ago to focus on what I went to college for, which is art. I sell paintings and I paint murals and uh, work in the fine art space pretty much. But today, what we are discussing goes really hand in hand, and I'll just give you my background and what I think we should talk about today. My grandfather started Dreamland Barbecue in 1956. You know, financial stability and knowledge in the 50s for a 35-year-old black man wasn't really there. So the more money they made, he probably just put it underneath his bed. You know what I mean? Like the idea of paying taxes was not that big of a deal. So he had 3 kids. He had all that property. He was a brick mason. The Klan burned it down. He rebuilt it back himself, which is really one of the coolest things ever about this story. But they had tax issues, and my grandmother was arrested because they never really paid taxes. So she went to jail. I grew up in Chicago. We were in Chicago. My mom got a phone call that was like, your mom's in jail. You need to get here right now. So my mom was like, we got to move to Alabama. And I was like, hell no. So me and my pops stayed in Chicago, and she went back, got her out of jail. And from there, my family took over the business, basically. They brought it to a point where it was one of the most like functioning African American businesses in the barbecue space. I don't think it was really looked at as an African American business. It was mainly just looked like barbecue in general. It's a legendary barbecue restaurant. But with that, so put it in perspective, that's like 1994. Crack era hit really hard in 86. We weren't used to money. So when my father got that access to money and like the people that worked at Dreamland immediately jumped into cocaine and crack cocaine, and you saw it ruin a family history. You know what I mean? You saw drugs impact even a family that was actually doing well in the sense of like you couldn't get it out of your system. Like it's just the attraction of the streets and whatnot always stays there. My mom sells the business due to distraction. She just couldn't handle it. And she had a partner who was her accountant, best friend, and lawyer. All 3 of those things don't go well together. You feel me? He happened to be a white guy. He helped her grow tremendously to become a millionaire, basically. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm in San Francisco cooking, being a hippie, doing my vibe thing. And she calls me and tells me that her partner, accountant, lawyer dude, best friend, killed himself and stole all of her money. Now it's time for me to come home. I've been here for 12 years, and as of 2 months ago, my mom secretly sold the original property that her grandfather started Dreamland on because she couldn't afford to like live basically. And me and my family assist, but like I said, I'm a cook and an artist, so I don't have that much money, obviously. So that's like why we should talk about black spaces and black people knowing how to be financial accountable, responsibility, facilitate. And it's great to look at the community, but it's also great to make sure you know what you're doing before you offer the community employment. And that's the catch. And the new catch within most black businesses is make sure you own the property. We ain't gonna get into that. So, welcome. Now, I believe the title of this is supposed to be From Seed to Scale, right? Do I need to give intros for these people probably real quick? All right, I'll do it. Zebby, the founder of Eugene's Hot Chicken. I would say, and to sum it up in one sentence, because I know we don't have that much time, Zebby is committed to ethical sourcing, fair wages, and building a black-owned business that truly reflects his principles. And that's just from being a fan and also getting to know you. Like, I just know how that rolls. You got Matthew right here, a power force in the city of Birmingham. His work centers on regenerative agriculture and composting, a powerful tool to heal soil, reduce waste, address systemic injustice in our food systems. He's doing what a lot of us don't have time to do. He's making sure you know the history of the soil. You know, Alabama was once the richest soil in America, the Black Belt. That's no longer a thing. And a lot of that was, don't get me started. I was going to talk about cotton and shit. I don't need to do all that. Anthony. All right. Anthony is a visionary food entrepreneur. This man is fostering community partnerships in literally reinvesting the future of black food businesses locally and beyond. I mean, it's a power force right here. I don't even know. People should know. You should probably be, there should be a focus, like straight up. All right, you got Jay. Jay is a tech innovator. I'm really excited to talk to you. His work centers on scaling sustainable, equitable systems through technology, helping to bridge digital divides and create lasting impact in black entrepreneurial space. That's a new form, especially from a chef. I don't think we got hit with the tech world until COVID happened. And I'll never forget right when like Toast and all that stuff started. None of us knew how to work it because we've been writing down orders forever. And then all of a sudden you had to get online and all those orders come through and you're like, oh God, what do I do? I mean, we had those services on lock and they actually helped a lot of us survive. Like that's probably one of the best things I've seen that happen in the culinary industry to assist. And it came at a good time when like minority businesses are ones that are kind of surviving more than white. Don't get me started. All right. So questions. How am I doing, guys? It's all right? You feel good? First question. How about I just go, let me do this. Zebby, as you've grown Eugene's from a food truck to storefronts, how have you balanced the financial pressures of ethical sourcing, fair wages, and pricing with staying true to your values as a black entrepreneur? Boom.
Whew.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think you have to think about this as a business, not so much a restaurant. But then you got to also realize you're in a people business, not so much the restaurant space. I talk to my crew about that all the time. So, one of my guys, he's on the truck right now. He's been with me the longest, 8 years, and I think the key to keeping people, and because you can't always afford to pay them more. And people will leave you for 50 cents. I always say that, but what I try to do is feed into them. I try to give them what they don't have, the education. I always say you're gonna do two things: you're gonna get better, or you're gonna quit. That's what I always say with my crew. And sometimes they quit, but a lot of times they get better. But then I just try to be fair. I understand in my industry, if people gonna quit for 50 cents, then you gotta really feed into them.
Yeah.
And I gotta learn how to pay more, but I gotta expect more.
Yes.
And so we expect a higher standard from our crew, but we try to feed into them and teach them at the same time.
Higher standards is probably the hardest thing about this business.
It is. And maintaining a consistent higher standards, that's the most challenging thing.
That's been the hardest thing for me since I quit restaurants is there's such a high sense of demand that is put on you. I've never been an owner, but as someone who helps people like you like get stronger, there's so much demand on like a right-hand person who cares so much. You're always seeking for a certain level of excellence. Yeah. And to walk away from that, like my kids are gonna say yes, chef to me. Like they ain't picking up orders. Like that ain't happening. You know what I mean? It's been like therapy. It's been kind of hard. I ain't gonna lie.
You can come work for me. Every week, I'll take you.
I'm chilling now. I'm old. My back hurts real quick. Jay, your tech innovation work puts you at the forefront of change. How do you balance scaling your business with the responsibility to create sustainable, equitable systems that truly uplift black communities from seed to scale?
That's a very good question, Roscoe. I think, when I got into this space, the goal was to be able to help entrepreneurs like yourself and others that want to start a business. And what you see a lot of times in restaurant space, you see people with great ideas who could bake a good cake, make great ribs, make great chicken, and they don't necessarily have the business side of things. And so what we were able to do is focus on building technology to be able to fill those gaps to where what people lack when they're operating a business, and those things that they lack typically are the difference between being able to scale. And one of the things that I did is I knew that I was building technology in an industry where everybody's talking about cashless. They don't credit cards only. Everybody want to go credit cards only. But when I really started to research and found out about the whole credit card only thing, one of the facts is it's a way of discriminating, because what you see is 20% of America is either unbanked or underbanked. And so what we're facing right now, in like for example a state like New York, they figured out that there was a lot of cashless business not accepting cash, and so it makes it so a person that may be underbanked or unbanked can't even afford to buy a bottle of water because they don't have a debit card. And so when we built our technology, we made sure that we built self-checkout technology that can handle cash and also handle cards, but also be able to scale into biometrics and identity verification and things of that nature. But when you talk about the overall industry, sometimes we move so fast from a technology standpoint, we leave people behind. And the people that typically get left behind are the minorities or the unbanked and the forgotten and things like that.
Man, that's heavy. That's a lot of research.
Yeah.
Back and forth for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because again, you're as a technology owner, you're moving fast to be able to keep up with the next best, the latest, the greatest. But at the same time, sometimes there's a lot of benefit in staying behind and making sure that you don't forget about that 20%, which is a still huge number in America, that needs to have the ability.
That's a faster education for people who actually want to work in the space too. I didn't have that. You know, when I started cooking, that was not a thing. Like we still had the things, like the ching. Like it's amazing to even learn that. And I love the way certain systems are set up to make it easier on the restaurant and the grocery store end in general. Like it's just gotten a lot better.
Right.
All right. Matthew, with your deep experience in farming and composting, how do you see how do you see composting and regenerative practices as a way to repair both land and the broken food system shaped by racial and economic injustice? Boom.
Yeah, for me, um, there's no, there's nothing more human than what we put in our bodies to nourish ourselves. And if we don't take care of that part of it, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. So knowing where our food comes from, knowing our producers, um, knowing that the soil that it's grown in hasn't been poisoned, how to regenerate that soil if it has been poisoned. Um, for me, I like to think about connections, right? I grow food for a living, but that food in that stage where I pull it out of the ground is not necessarily how you like to enjoy it. That's what these guys are for. Can you hear me now? Yeah, that's what these guys are for. But how do I make those connections? How do I make the connections between um, the farmers in South Alabama growing 700 acres of sweet potatoes? You know, how do we get sweet potato fries on Zebby's menu? You know, how do we do those things? That's what I'm interested in, is making sure that, you know, every day when you walk around Birmingham, when you walk around anywhere in Alabama, that whatever your food choices are, whatever they may be, that you're finding yourself with an option of the highest quality, a high quality option for you. And yeah, my part in that is helping to grow that food and regenerate the soil.
Regenerated soil, something we definitely as a community weren't. I mean, some of us were. A lot of people grew up on farms. I didn't. And I didn't really eat. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. We had cans. Like, vegetable cans in the 80s. It wasn't that good. But luckily I'm a chef, so I can play with a lot of like great produce. And what Jones Valley does and many other people do is great because they're teaching kids. I mean, we're like 10 years in, teaching kids where stuff actually comes from, what it's supposed to taste like, how you can monetize off of it. It's a beautiful thing. Like, that's a whole different discussion. But shout out Anthony. Scaling a food brand is tough. How do you keep community, partnerships, Black ownership central as you grow? What's your vision for reinvesting in Black food businesses for the future? Also, besides all that, I just want to say congratulations because what you've done from Hassett Plans and just do y'all know about him? Did you research? I'll let him tell you, but shout out. You want me to read that question again? Because I messed it up. All right. Scaling a food brand is tough. How do you keep community, partnerships, Black ownership central as you grow? And what's your vision for reinvesting in Black food waste systems?
Okay, so I started out as a restaurant primarily focused on health conscious food. Well, then I saw a need for better food in the school system. And I went from restaurant to retail to manufacturing. And I manufactured school pizza for Region 2 of Alabama. That's Jefferson County, St. Clair, and Blount County. And I'm federally inspected to do so. And I saw the reasoning for doing that based on a few factors that I didn't like ingredients, things like that, in the food that the kids were consuming. I found out the pizza had 100 ingredients. And I thought to myself, I wanted the parents know exactly what the kids are consuming and, can I do something about it? Well, I didn't think I could do anything about it, because the kids, the businesses that feed the kids are conglomerate companies, big businesses, billion-dollar businesses. So who am I to come in and try to redo what they've been doing for years? So I just went out on a limb and tried to create something that was better for the kids and better for the community. And I pretty much transitioned from one aspect of the business to this aspect of the business, for the health of the community. And it wasn't easy. It was a real tough journey to do the things that I've done, but I think. Can you hear? Okay, appreciate it. All right. So what was that? Oh yeah, it was a tough journey. I'm sorry. It was a tough journey transitioning from this to that, not really knowing what I was getting into. But basically, to answer your question, I see myself from this point on just trying to keep the people engaged with what's important when it comes to food for kids. My biggest concern in food, it started out personal, but it went on to the kids. So my biggest goal is to redo the food in the public school system. That's pretty much where I'm headed. I still have a restaurant, but my biggest concern is the public school system, and that's what I'm trying to, venture into to make sure the kids get the proper nutrition and things like that. So I hope I answered your question.
You totally did. You totally did. I had the chance through him at Jones Valley last summer to do I did a week, it was like 3 days, workshop with all the cafeteria workers from, one was Jefferson County and the other one, I forget the other county. So it was like 60 women they came in, and here I am, Mr. Chef guy. So they automatically looked at me like I was going to push like tweezers and like microgreens on them. But I came up with recipes that would work within their guidelines, but none of them were really willing to listen to me. And they were just like, you don't understand the government. You don't understand what we're up against. We can't have this. We can't have that. We can't have this. So we just take it out of the bag and feed you. You don't have the money to pull whatever you want to off. So I learned my lesson. I mean, they cursed me out. And then the second time I did it, the second lesson, I let them talk just to see what angle they were coming from. And I learned, I mean, it was like 5 hours. It was, out of all the things I've done in my life, it was one of the roughest 5 hours of my life because the school system put so many barriers on flavor, not just like protein and like health aspects, just flavor. Like you can go through 12-year school system in America and just taste water. No nutrients at all. Everything cooked straight out of it. So I applaud all of you for even thinking about it, let alone actually doing something about it. You know what I'm saying? All right. I will run through a couple more things and I'll let you guys talk. I'm trying to keep it to like a 36-minute chat. Is that chill? And then let them talk to you for the rest. I didn't do nothing. Let's jump into. I wanted to originally, when I think about what we're talking about, I break it down into the 4 P's: priority, passion, position, and purpose. And I've heard, out of all the questions I've asked you guys, I've heard you answer all 4 of those. Like, you do it for the passion of making sure, for one, you find out your passion because you work so hard and it has to mean something. And then you learn your purpose within the food ways system of the Southeast and some looking way beyond through technology and government, brand, and soil. So your priority changed immediately to just a community-based business. Like now you become educators to where you're teaching a region and black community. As much as I don't want to like just keep pushing, we're in a tough time right now. I mean, you see what's happening to Latinos. Like, I wouldn't know how to cook if it wasn't for Latino people. Like, I never cooked. I've had like probably one executive black chef in my lifetime, and I've worked in tons of restaurants. I've always been like the only black guy in like Michelin star kitchens, you know. And then when you see another one, like we all hold tight. There's a text chain I have with like 10 of us, and the black chef space is still really tiny. Food was not cool in the 90s. It wasn't like you could get a tattoo and like a cool mustache and like be on Top Chef and be cool and be like, yeah, I know how to make salad dressings. It was not looked that cool. I got made fun of for cooking. Like, it was not a good thing. Ladies didn't talk to you. Like, you couldn't like do. Emerald was probably the coolest thing out there. Like, if it wasn't for him, I doubt I'd even be sitting in this chair. I say all that because once you get wrapped up in this industry and you don't quit, your purpose is completely different. You get a staff, you take on education, you're teaching a community how to eat, and then you got to look at it. What we're talking about here is scaling and sustainability. Like the story I gave you about my grandparents, there was no sustainability in that plan at all. There was no business plan at all. What they were doing was right by the family, and he made a way for himself, which everyone does when they start like a business. But if you don't step away and look at your purpose for doing it, how can you build a community? How can you educate your workers? How can you build something to where you invest in them because they invested their time in you? Like, I think the best thing about the pandemic, one of the main reasons I quit working in restaurants after the pandemic was like the 3 years of that hit. Like, it changed everything I knew about kitchens. Like, service changed, the way I was supposed to treat people changed. I'm not saying I was a bad guy, but when you start cooking those early days, people put their necks on you, like, or they put their foot on your necks, like they use you. You work really hard hours, and like I said earlier, the high expectations are insane. And I couldn't handle going into a new route. Like, that's on me. And the new route was technology. Like, I didn't know how to adapt. It's not that I want to adapt. I love iPhones and like Google and stuff, but like, I didn't know how to. I didn't want to teach anybody anything new. I just couldn't do it, you know. So I bailed, and that's on y'all now. Y'all are teaching people something new. You know your purpose. You have it prioritized, like you know exactly where it's headed. And every day something changes. Um, so yeah, that's my tangent right there. All right, balancing growth and core values. All right, how do you stay connected to your mission and community while growing your business or project? Anybody can take it.
I'll start. If we're going to talk about seeds, let's talk about starting seeds in the ground and selling selling that product to an end user. I think farming, when you start to grow food, you have these ideal of what farming looks like. You get to be outside. You get to have your hands in the soil. From a business standpoint, if you don't treat it like just more than a passion project, you oftentimes get overwhelmed by the 98-degree heat in Alabama, the constant insect pressure from anything that you're putting in the ground. However, if you put that business mind or business sense behind farming, then it starts to mean a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You can start to see everybody eats. There's a lot of customers out there then. So if you start to think about it that way and you start to plan that way and you start to think about sustainability from a business standpoint, from a farming standpoint, those barriers start to fall. I think the way forward for farms from a sustainability standpoint is to have contracts already written with your end user. There's some great organizations out there doing that work now. We're trying to do it here where I know that if I plant 3,000 tomato plants, I have all those tomatoes already sold, right? Before I even plant them. That helps me plan water usage, helps me plan fertilizer usage, all those things. But what it does for me is it makes my business and my farm sustainable, but also helps a food business know that they're guaranteed a product at the end. There's always weather and there's always disaster, but for the most part, it's a benefit to both parties.
Well done, chef. Y'all don't have to tackle that. If you don't want to, you can.
I don't mind. When I think about core values and how we started, I started with a food truck. I was an executive chef for 10 years, corporate company. That's how I got to Alabama. When I started as a food truck, man, we was just out here working, you know what I mean? Because you had to just really change my focus. So, as I've been able to scale, I think about, how we scale or how that corporate company became that corporate company. Mm-hmm. And, what we do now is we hire, fire, and retain around core values. And that's the only way we're going to exist, because if my Hoover location ain't like my Birmingham location, of course I'm gonna hear about it. So, we just try our best to just put all focus in the core values and, scale that way. And then, education, I think, my whole journey, as an entrepreneur, you really building a plane in the air. Mm-hmm. And I heard this analogy the other day, and charging people for a mission or to sit on the plane while you learn how to build a plane.
Oh, man.
But that's kind of what you're doing as an entrepreneur. But my whole entrepreneurial journey, while I've been learning how to become an entrepreneur, I actually been educating myself on all aspects of being an entrepreneur, because I'm like you, I'm a chef. I'm not a CEO, but I had to learn how to be a CEO. And I think that's the most challenging part. So, you have to hone it back in and bring it back in and just, I think, hire, fire, and retain around core values.
Hire, fire. The retain's the hard part. Let's talk about it. You want me to go to another question, or y'all want to jump on it?
So scaling for me, I started selling pizza out of the house. I suffered with diabetes in 2014, and I couldn't find a way to eat the things I wanted to eat. So I tried to create them myself, and I knew other people wanted certain options that you couldn't get in the grocery store or in certain restaurants, like a crust that really didn't have as many carbohydrates and things like that. So that's where it started for me. And I opened Bell Peppers in 2020 in the middle of COVID, and it was going okay for a while. And then when it got time to scale up, my only dream was just to have a restaurant. And Eugene, how he expanded to a Hoover location, that was my plan at first. Well, my expansion changed when I saw certain problems with certain things, like in the school system. I found a lot of things that was going on with the products that the kids were eating, like the pizza, for example. I deal with pizza a lot. They get the protein from soy protein concentrate. It's like you go to the gym, you drink protein powder, to get your protein needs. So the fact that the pepperoni, you can't get the protein from that because it's probably about 25% meat. The rest is a vegetable texture. It's called textured vegetable protein product. It's the combination to make the product whole. So they add things like that so the kids can get adequate protein. Well, the cheese is not 100% cheese. You got about 25% cheese, and then you got 75%. It's called substitute mozzarella. Parents didn't see new ingredient lists and things like that often, so a lot of things can slide by the radar. Well, I done my research on these things. That's how I found out, and that's when I presented my product to the state. And given the fact that I was already USDA inspected, gave me an opportunity they had to take me into consideration. I mean, you can't just say, well, I don't want to see what he has. You have to take me serious if I'm presenting to you the problem that you have and then the solution that I have to your problem. So I presented a product with about 20 grams of real protein that you're getting from real cheese, real meat, so I had to say to myself, well, I think I'm going to go in this direction. I wanted several restaurants and things like that, but the school problem hit me the hardest when I found out, what they were consuming. And it's a few things that I would like to do, but I just decided to deal with the pizza. So when it came time to expand, I had to close my restaurant down for a year in order to make preparations to take on, the school system and things like that. And then once I got that started, I went back to the restaurant just for breakfast though, So we serve breakfast, and now we manufacture in the evening time. So when it came to scaling, a lot of times you won't scale in the way that you think you will, because you may have another purpose that you can't see at the moment, but it was already predestined for you from the beginning, So that's pretty much what happened to me. It wasn't a plan to do what I was doing from the beginning. It was just like, one of those things that I feel I was called to do, because like I said, there's only 3 manufacturers that can sell pizza to schools, and 2 of them are billion-dollar companies, and I'm the 3rd. And a lot of people say, well, how did you do it? Well, it was just meant for me to do, I believe, and that's all I can say. I'm proud to do what I do. It's not easy. Look at me and look at them. I don't even see how I got on the podium with these other businesses, but there's a way things work, and a lot of time it's above us what we're going to end up doing in the long run. Besides the plans that we pre-make, sometimes that won't be the plan, but it'll be for the better though.
Much respect.
Yeah, I want to say like my dad was a construction owner growing up, and he had a small mom and pop construction company, and so in the summertime I'd be working with him, and it was some days where he would go pick up his workers, and one particular he would always sometime maybe once or twice a week be too drunk to go to work. And so my dad will, he would knock on the door, and then some days he said, well, I can't pay him today. I need to wait and pay him tomorrow, because if I pay him today, he gonna drink today and he ain't gonna be ready for tomorrow. And so as a kid, that taught me that here my dad is trying to build a business on construction, but he's having to build that business based on labor, based on other people. And so when you talk about scaling, when you talk about all these different ideas, the most important part of scaling is labor. I heard Zebby say hiring and firing. And so whenever you start in a business, you can have the greatest product in the world, but if you don't have labor, then it's hard to execute that product. So when I got into building my technology, the first thing I did is I built a kiosk solution that attached to a slot machine, and I got a patent for it. And so the reason for that was to be able to make it so the casino could operate with less people on the floor. And so we built this technology, took it to market, and then I started to see some things, some writing on the wall to say that the restaurant industry was going to be impacted by labor shortages and labor costs. Fast forward, COVID hit, and then a great resignation hit, and they started talking about, well, touch screens are going to be too dirty, and this is going to be something concerning. Here we are, upside down $1 million, and we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with COVID. But when the dust settled, a lot of businesses went to where, okay, now we're trying to find labor, businesses are opening back up, but these people that typically work in the restaurant industry have taken a pivot. Now they're moving to driving Ubers, they're moving to doing other jobs, but working in the restaurant industry. So as a restaurant owner, it goes from how do I find labor? When I first started this mission, somebody told me, man, you're building technology to kill jobs. And so then after COVID, they said, man, you saving businesses. Because when it all comes down to it, now my mind is going to the future where I'm looking at a business to where if you're baking a great pie or you're baking something nice, you're creating a great product, your business is, if you're quick service, you're nothing more than a vending machine anyway. You're basically set up to say, okay, we're making this food, we're deploying it out of the kitchen, that's the way it goes. I was at Shake Shack on 280 this past weekend, and I took my son out for Father's Day. And so we go to Shake Shack, and they're basically set up to where, okay, it's self-checkout. You go here, you place your order, you pick up your food. And so they're basically giving you the writing on the wall. McDonald's is doing the same thing. But these huge corporations, they have billions of dollars to invest in technology. And what's going to be the next trend? What's this going to be? How is the world going to adapt to technology? And if I'm McDonald's, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of we're $1 billion upside down in investment. We got to keep our investment alive. We know that it's going to be more and more difficult to find labor. So that's why you're going to see more and more automation, online ordering, delivery ordering, facial recognition. You're seeing AI in drive-thrus where you pull up. It used to be a time where you talk to a person in drive-thru. Now you pull up and it's like a computer. It's like, hey, can I take your order? It's like, this can't be a human.
Yeah.
So they're preparing. And so what I challenge, as you said, for small business owners is to also be prepared so you can make sure you can continue to make that great food that you're making and you're not left behind in a position to where you're dependent on somebody that's not there to help you grow your business.
I honestly think I did a good job up here. Because, did you hear that? Like, all down the line? Listen. Okay? I know it's almost time, so I'm about to open up the floor to y'all to talk and ask questions. Shout out to all 4 of you. Thanks for listening to my weird questions, talking to me. I got much respect for you. I appreciate you. I'm glad. It's hard to have hope, you know what I mean? Especially when you got children out here. It's a crazy world, but when you sit back and listen to people and how they develop their lives and then finding their purpose within community, it gives you a lot of hope. You know what I mean? Like, black people are some of the most hopeful people in the world, I'd say. You can't beat our spirit, so hold on to that. Much respect to you.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Roscoe, I love how you didn't read them directions on the email I sent you. So now we're going to do a Q&A, okay? He's like, what's next? Preparation is key. We love you, Roscoe. So one of the things that I shared earlier on is making sure that we have an opportunity to ask questions. So first of all, I just want to thank y'all for such rich conversation. And again, just to deep dive a little bit more into the amazing things that y'all are doing. I just think from what you're building, Jagil, what you're doing, Anthony, Debbie, Matt, it is really phenomenal when you think about you, Roscoe, too. I didn't forget about you. um, it's really phenomenal when you think about what it is that you are building and how innovation is just taking place in the spaces that you are in. So I wanted to provide space to ask questions, not even ask questions, share thoughts, opinions. I see Kayla's hand already, but to share. So we're gonna have run this microphone. But again, remember that it's Q&A, but it's really us problem solving. So based on what we heard, based on where you at, what you're thinking, what does Birmingham need to do? Like, how do we tackle what we just heard and talked about? So, Kayla, I know you have a question, and so we can just kind of pass it around.
Greetings. So I was curious to know if any of you have plans to do this or if you have opinions on doing this as it pertains to food, clean eating, and things like that within the Black community. We talk about scaling. Are any of you thinking about scaling vertically? So going into the other means of production. So if you have a restaurant, are you thinking about growing the food yourself so that you don't have to deal with other folks? Are you thinking about packaging? Like, is that on anybody's mind? And also, again, do you think it's necessary to kind of go in that direction in terms of making sure that things are sustainable and equitable for Black folks?
I was talking to the lady who started Santos Coffee a few years ago, and she told me, go get a chicken farm. And I'm like, man, I'm from the inner city. I don't know nothing about no chicken farm. You know, and then I was talking to her again a few years ago, and she was explaining to me, you know, how coffee comes from Colombia. She owns that. She owns the real estate company. She owns the construction company. So that just put, you know, a different mindset for me. So, you know, for us, you know, my next thing when she was talking about, you know, construction company, I want to say, can a restaurant sign up, you know, to come get the stuff for construction company? Because I want to start my own construction company. I'm opening up a commissary kitchen right down the road, and you know, a chicken farm that will be next. I got a cousin who just graduated animal science from Tuskegee, and I'm trying to get her to take it over. But you know, stuff like that I would have never thought about before I got in this business. But like Anthony said, man, sometimes you have to pivot in this business, and it's something that you may have never thought about. So some of that stuff I have been thinking about.
That's actually a good question. When you say growing it yourself, things like that. Me personally, I have no experience in farming, but I do use a lot of vegetables. And for example, I think something that I would benefit from is a guy like Mr. Matt, where he grows and he knows things about agriculture. I use, let's for instance, bell peppers. That's the name of my business, but I also use a lot of bell peppers. And that's where me and Matt could collaborate, you know, once I get on a larger scale and I'm using tons of vegetables. People like him with his expertise could provide me with the things that I need from that perspective, you know, as far as that's concerned. I personally couldn't do it, but that opens up the opportunity of networking. And you know, it actually, things like this is what creates the opportunity to do what you just said, because now I've met him and I've met Mr. Eugene and things like that, and I met this guy, and everybody has something unique to bring to the table, you know, where he mentioned the technology that he's providing. You know, I had a cashier do a no call, no show, you know, and if I had some technology that wasn't going to call in, I mean, everything has a purpose, you know. And some people will say, and I felt where he was coming from when they said that he was killing jobs. People thought of it like that, but in a sense, it could actually save you from the person that has so many flaws. You know, we have flaws. You know, we don't call in. We just don't come to work, and that leaves a business in a bad situation. Am I right? When an employee just doesn't come to work, right? You know, but to answer your question, you know, that's a good thing to do. But networking and finding people like Mr. Matt for your vegetables who has a strong suit in that, and me, you know, I'm in manufacturing, you know, and that's where we could come together and pretty much help each other. You know, he needs demand, I need supply, and that's where we meet in the middle. You know.
We about to say something, Matt?
I was just going to say real quick, nothing fires me up more than conversations like that, connecting people. You, as someone in agriculture, you get siloed in the away from city centers where the innovation is happening, you know. And right, I'm not a chicken farmer, but I know a guy. I don't grow a lot of bell peppers right now, but I know how. You know, those kind of conversations to help collaborate between like-minded, smart, intelligent people who want to do good, talking about core values. There's nothing that gets me more excited about to have conversations like that. You did it.
No, this truly is that. Like I'm super excited. And I just cook at home, sometimes. But I think one of the things that I'm hearing too when we talk about innovation and the idea to impact and just what this space means, I'm hearing too ownership, right? Like of the whole supply chain. Like from building the buildings to the land that it sits on to even owning your supply chain. And I think that's the thing that I want really to spark our minds is that sometimes we think about just the thing that we make, just the thing that we do, just the thing that we're passionate about. But I do want to push us when you're thinking about that thing, think about it holistically. What does it take for that whole thing to work? And then I want you to plug into the different parts of that. And of course, it takes time because, like, Zebby, you like, okay, I'm gonna do this commissary kitchen. This chicken farm is next. So it takes time to get there, but I do want us to think starting with the end in mind, right? So when we're thinking about that idea, I know we have a few food entrepreneurs in here. I'm gonna call you out, like Alexis, right? Who has Urban Soul. Hey, girl, we see you. Angel was in here earlier, right? And so I know you're doing some different things. And so I want us to think with the end in mind, right? Thinking about the whole supply chain and more so not just creating a really good product and having a really good service, but ownership. Because that's where the game starts to change and that's when you can begin to innovate. So I do agree we have the Avengers on the stage and we need to figure out where we're going. But I just wanted to share that thought. Did anybody?
Thank y'all so much for this insightful panel. So I'm really passionate about, this question's for Matthew, but I mean, if anybody else wants to answer. I'm really passionate about the environment, sustainability, and farming. So I'd be interested to know more about like, your composting practices and like the strategies around that. And then would you be open to sourcing compostable waste from other restaurants, even like the folks on this panel, to integrate back into the soil and like close the gap even further?
Yeah, thank you. What was the first part? I'm sorry. I was thinking about
Your
closing the gap.
compostable strategies and practices.
Yeah, thanks. So I come to composting from two different perspectives. There's a soil health perspective from the end use of the product, but there's also a waste diversion side of composting where you're pulling an organic waste stream out of the landfills, right? We've seen the mayor on TV talking about trash and waste. Birmingham owns its own landfills, but they're filling up fast, and they're filling up from lots of organic waste. If you remove 30% of that organic waste and you compost it, you make a product out of it. Imagine the lifespan of that landfill, which we still need, goes way up. So I come at it from a waste diversion. So, sorry, I was covering up the antenna. I come at it from a waste diversion standpoint. I will compost anything and everything. I take it all if it's an organic material. And I turn that organic material into something that's usable. It doesn't have to be an organic farm or vegetable farm. It can be landscaping for outside of places like this. It could be for building projects when they build new office buildings. There's a lot of stuff you can use that way. I used to own a small composting business before where we did accept food waste and organic waste from restaurants, office buildings, and homes. Thank you, Roscoe. We appreciate that. And so I'm always, that business is no longer, a viable business, but I'm always looking for ways to get that jump started again on a municipal level, not just a mom and pop level, so that the city of Birmingham, the city of Hoover, the city of Bessemer can all do the same thing, which we all need to start thinking about doing, which is lowering our waste.
Hi. I don't know if y'all So, as I'm listening to all of you, I hear sort of a full scale vertical thing, the Avengers, if you would. A lot of Birmingham finds itself in a food desert, almost 99% of it, I think. Has anybody had any thoughts about things that we could do, whether it's from the agricultural perspective or from the perspective of foods like bell peppers, to get healthier foods into the hands of the citizens here to kind of help out, whether it's in big ways or if you want to open a grocery store?
I mean, I don't sell the most health conscious food. You know, we sell chicken. But I will say on that note, I am, I think about like all of the food trucks ahead. When I first started in 2014, it was like 10 food trucks. Now, right now, the city licensed about 300 food trucks. You know, my first thought process is where they prepping this food at? You know what I mean? So, I personally can't do anything, but I would love to help out our food industry by building a commissary kitchen so those health conscious restaurants, food trucks and bakers and caterers can get out to the community. So that's my part on it.
So what I've done, like I said, I started out with just a restaurant, but to do like what you were asking, before I dealt with public schools, I went retail, which I'm in about 20 grocery stores with my pizzas frozen. The things that I've done to make my product healthier, to put it in the hands of a lot of families, when you buy pizza from the grocery store, the meat is mechanically separated, which means they take the animal and a machine snatches every piece of meat off of the animal. So you're gonna have a little bit of organs, blood, things like that in your pepperoni and sausage. My meat comes from whole cuts. It's not mechanically separated. I'm giving you different crust options like extra thin. That's a regular flour crust, but it's so thin to where you're saving so many calories and carbohydrates and things like that. And then I'm offering gluten-free crust, like cauliflower crust, but my goal was not to make it taste like cauliflower. It tastes just like flour, due to herbs and spices and things like that. My pizzas contain vegetables, which you don't see in the grocery store. You're gonna just get cheap meats and things like that, which are products from the other manufacturers. I tried to give healthier meat choices, healthier crust choices, and that was my way of pretty much trying to put healthier options into the hands of families throughout Birmingham. Was just to retail my product. So and then that's pretty much my take on trying to get things into the hands of families, was just going retail. So that was my way of expanding my product to the hands of families across Jefferson County. Was going retail. So that's what I did to do what you asked.
While the microphone's being walked over there, just real quick, trying to attack food deserts and food insecurity from an agricultural standpoint, which is something that's needed, is connecting people back to being able to grow food. You don't have to grow everything you consume, but having that knowledge and the empowerment to do so when you need to, is really important. There's a network of community gardens that are going up around Birmingham where they speak to each other all the time, and somebody may be growing sweet potatoes, somebody may be growing bell peppers, and then they share food, sharing across neighborhoods, but really empowering people with the knowledge to put seed to soil, I think, is really important, and it's something we've lost. Just getting that back.
It's a language that's like shunned upon in the the white community. Like you can't say the food desert anymore. You know what I mean? Don't say food desert. And like I get it. Like from a private chef, like artist standpoint, like quit using the word desert because it's sad. It means like not only is the food dried up, but the community's dried up. And like, don't tell me my community's dried up. We're more alive than most people's. We just have a different way of looking at things because of the offerings you give us. I fight food deserts. I've been on a food desert fight campaign since, like, I'm an artist, so most of all of my art is about fighting food deserts. What I do with soil, and vegetables is I make my own paint pigments out of it. So every painting I do has a piece of our region. I dehydrate sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and I make paint out of that. So every painting I do tells the story of a food desert. It's about regionality. You don't have to quit saying the word, but a white person may yell at you for saying food desert. Yeah.
So I have two questions that I'll ask all at once so I won't forget. Several things I heard Mr. Hall said: priority, passion, position, and purpose. And then Mr. Duggar said the most important part of scaling is labor. Putting those together, your labor force, of course, is coming from our young people. What, if anything, have any of you been able to do to connect to our young people, particularly through career tech education in our schools, to help them find their passion and purpose and thereby relieve perhaps some of that lack of labor force or even future entrepreneurs? It's important that our children see you and hear from you. And you might be surprised what you hear from them. They might have your next idea. Have any of you been able to connect with school districts to do any of that?
Oh yeah, a lot. Like since I've lived in Alabama, that's been my whole like workforce connection. It kind of comes to me, but it comes from doing stuff like this and showing up at schools and talking about food and just not being scared. I just have that push. It's like a punk rock thing. I'm always like looking to start trouble and get the youth to like save them. Because when I started cooking, I was 17, so I was like a little punk kid. And back in the day, kitchens saved your life. Like you would see a bunch of kids like me, kind of like you go in now and you see like I can't tell you how many shifts I've worked where I had to send people home for reeking of weed and having guns on them. You know what I mean? Like, it's part of the plan now. It comes with life, but you can change that by just showing them purpose. And then if they develop a passion from what you do, it changes the whole outlook. So I'm sure y'all agree.
When I went to Bessemer City Schools to showcase my pizzas. I think it was last year, and the students knew that they were getting a new product. They didn't know by whom, what company. They didn't know who was behind it. Just the fact that they saw me, motivated and inspired them a lot. I hate to say it, but I was the last person they thought they were going to see when they were, and I mean, I'm just being honest, I was the last person they thought they were going to see when they knew that a guy was coming to tell them about the new pizza that they were going to get. So my presence alone inspired the young gentlemen and the young women of tomorrow that anything's possible when it comes to whatever you want to do in life, you can do, So that was my way of pretty much just me being me, just walking in and showing the kids like, hey, we can do anything we want to do, we see.
And I forgot to ask my second question, and that was from the aspect of you having your pizza in school districts. You mentioned that you were in a couple. What is it that we can do as tax-paying citizens to help that expand?
So that's a good question. When it comes to that, the kids want my product. The government does not. And I'm I probably, well, I'm gonna say it like this, so the thing is, I created a solution that every district says that they want. They want healthy options for the kids, but they don't want to pay for it. They wanted real cheese, they wanted lower sodium, and I corrected all of those things. But what I couldn't correct was I couldn't get a product that was 50 cents. And I mentioned, hey, my product is $1.80 per unit. Well, that's too high. Our budget doesn't, and I'm saying, okay, well, I mean, the only way you can get down to, and I'm like, I can't sell a 50-cent product. That's not what you asked for, you know? So in a sense of how could you expect, they have to really want a healthy option. Now they're getting ready to be forced to get a healthy option, but they have to want it, you know? The kids love the product. It's just that they have to want it. The government, they have to actually want to pay for it, you know. And $1 for a pizza or a 6-inch pizza is not a lot of money. If I made public, hey, I got $1 pizzas at my restaurant, it'll be a line out the door. But why is it now, you know, when it comes to government money, there's no line, you know? And I can't answer that question. I really can't. As much as I want to, it's just something that I can't control. It's a budget thing.
I just have a statement. I'm glad Roscoe brought up the food desert point, but I just want to challenge us in our thinking when we talk about food deserts. So deserts are naturally occurring ecosystems where apartheids are systems that are created by neglect, policy, and discrimination. So instead of saying food deserts, it's more appropriate to say food apartheids, because that's essentially what it is. It's an apartheid that's creating, like I said, neglect due to policy and discrimination, limiting healthy access to food. So that's just something I want us to challenge in our thinking.
Maybe a little bit of a controversial question, but I think it's a good place to talk about it. In light of what we all been saying, especially my brother just kind of commented, us needing to represent and take care of each other, when we think about as information gets out, access to capital, the know-how, and then the question comes to expand and scale with the conversation of AI, how sustainable and healthy is that for us is, if you know what I mean? Like how, when we think about AI and jobs possibly being removed from a socio-economic standpoint, is that healthy for a Black community? What do you guys think about that?
Ooh, I think your network equals your net worth. So when you're thinking about, who all I can learn from everyone in this room. They don't have to be in my industry. And I think it's very important for us to be intentional about, I'm going to get bell peppers, pizzas, you know what I mean? That's what we're going to have for dinner tonight. I think, we just got to be intentional. And I think a lot of times we are just not intentional about doing business or networking with us.
I think knowledge is power. There's nothing wrong with knowing, accepting, and watching new things come about in any industry. We get to choose whether we participate in that or not. But personally, I sure want to know what's coming around that corner before it does. I want to be smart about it. I want to have the decision, or I want to be able to make that decision whether I choose those new technologies. I don't want it to be forced upon me.
I think we got to be truthful with ourselves and understand that technology is going to, and it is currently creating a huge division between the haves and have-nots, from an educational standpoint, from a community standpoint, from a culture standpoint, from a race standpoint. And so it's going to be a lot of people that's left behind, and I think we just got to make sure that it's not our people, but I think it's intentionally creating a gap that we need to be aware of and not take for granted.
Thank y'all. Can you give them a round of applause? That was amazing. So again, I just want to thank you guys so much for that, and I thank you all. Oh, who got a question?
I mean, I do. ChatGPT, we use it for everything. How to write our codes right now, like how we writing training manuals. It can answer questions. It can create stuff way quicker than we can. So it's just different ways we trying to plug it in and use it however we can.
Same. We plug it in where we can.
No problem. Thank you. Thank y'all again. I appreciate that. So from this conversation, we heard a lot of different things. We heard a lot about food apartheid. We heard a lot about ownership, owning those supply chains, right? How to not just look at the thing, the product, the service we provide, but to look at it from a holistic standpoint. So I just want to make sure that we keep that top of mind as we go out, as we're thinking about what our idea means, what it looks like, what innovation, what impact thinks and feels like. I want us to take this conversation with us. And from this conversation, again, I may mention that we're developing our white paper, which will help provide policy and guidance on the things that came out of this conversation. I would like to, so two things also came up. Caleb will be designing Avenger shirts, food Avenger shirts for you all. We're very serious. We're very fast at what we do. So just look out. We're going to get your shirt sizes. But in addition to that, one of the things that I have been thinking about as an ecosystem builder, as someone who is serious about innovation and what it is that we build here, is our next step is to do some food incubation around food apartheid. So how do we provide space for up-and-coming healthy food entrepreneurs? At the same time, how do we provide the community with different healthy food options on a rotating basis? So I wanted to ask y'all this publicly, so when I send y'all email, y'all have to respond. Will you all be a part of helping us to incubate the next round of food entrepreneurs here at Polaris?
No, I don't want to do that. I'm just
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd love to.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. We got two. Say it in the microphone. Say it in the microphone. Don't rub your eye.
Yeah, what?
Okay, Jagil.
You know what to find.
Okay, Roscoe.
We'll see.
Okay. No, seriously. So we're going to do that. And as I do that, I'm going to make sure I share that journey with you all, because I would love for you all to be a part of that as we figure out who these healthy food entrepreneurs are, as we figure out how to help support them and sustain them. And we want to do that right here in Woodlawn, because why not Woodlawn? Why not now? And I think, too, it's even something great that can happen with the commissary kitchen coming along. So again, thank y'all so much for being here. Yep, y'all can go ahead, round of applause.